During his White House years, William Jefferson Clinton, a man Sonia Sotomayor might call a white male, was nonetheless accorded an accolade by one of his African American admirers of being, quote, the first American black president, unquote. And if you look at the standard that he set for special interest pandering and the politics of identity, I think you'd have to say that Barack Hussein Obama would qualify as America's first Muslim president. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that Barack Obama actually is a Muslim any more than Bill Clinton actually is black. But I am saying that the evidence that has been accumulating in the 5 months that President Obama has been in office, and most especially during his recent swing through the Middle East, and his speech in Cairo, better known as the speech, I think, in Cairo, that he may have undertaken in a campaign in which he essentially disavowed his Muslim associations and roots to where we are today. It seems as though it could constitute the most potentially consequential bait and switch, well, since Hitler duped Chamberlain over Czechoslovakia at Munich. Now, some of the evidence suggests that the man actually is Muslim. For example, take from the Cairo speech 3 interesting points. One, he repeatedly, in fact, I think 4 different times, talked about the Holy Quran. You can attribute that to just pandering to Muslims in a, obviously, principally Muslim audience. But on the other hand, that's a term that is generally used by Muslims, not others, to describe their book. He also made an interesting statement. He said, quote, "I have known Islam on 3 continents before coming to the region where it was first revealed," unquote. Now, again, perhaps this is just pandering to Muslims, but by and large, only Muslims think that the Quran actually is the revealed word of God as provided to Muhammad through his dictation from Allah. And then there's this really stunning statement. The president talked about, in the context of what he euphemistically called the Israeli-Palestinian-Arab situation, that he looked forward to the day when, quote, "Jerusalem is a secure and lasting home for Jews and Christians and Muslims, and a place for all of the children of Abraham to mingle peacefully together as in the story of Israel, when Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, peace be upon them, joined in prayer," unquote. Now, peace be upon them is a term that is frequently used by Muslims, but it's used to invoke a blessing upon dead, holy people, typically the Prophet Muhammad. When you lump Moses, a dead prophet, and Muhammad, a dead prophet, together with Jesus Christ, you're saying something about Jesus, namely that he's mortal and dead, that is very much part of the teachings of Islam, but is absolutely at odds with what Christians believe. And even a man who came to the Christian faith, as Barack Obama claims to have done late in his life, albeit under the tender teachings of the notorious Jeremiah Wright, given what he now acknowledges very publicly, in fact, you might even say boasts about, in terms of his knowledge of Islam, this kind of statement would seem to suggest the man is not a Christian. And presumably is a Muslim. But look, it may be irrelevant, because what really is important is not what he personally practices in terms of his faith, but the affinity, indeed the embrace that he is engaged in now of what authoritative Islam calls Sharia, or at least the program of those who are advancing it insidiously inside this country and other Western democracies, notably a global organization called the Muslim Brotherhood. You may remember from some of our previous chats that the Muslim Brotherhood's mission in America, according to documents provided uncontested in the Holy Land Foundation trial in Dallas last year, is, quote, to destroy Western civilization from within, unquote. So it's more than a little troubling that the President of the United States is having anything to do with, let alone seemingly advancing in a number of different ways, the program, the agenda, the ambitions of those like the Muslim Brothers, who I believe seek not only to mutate our society in ways that would make it unrecognizable so as to accommodate their program of Sharia, but in fact to destroy this country from within. Let me give you a couple of examples of what the President has said just in this one speech in Cairo. He claimed that there were 7 million Muslims in America. Now, this is really just the latest of a series of similar statements that exaggerate both the numbers and the influence of Muslims, both in the past and contemporaneously in American history and society. That number is a Muslim Brotherhood number, by the way, buffed by at least a factor of 2 from most of the more objective counts. Now, I have to say, perhaps by the time Mr. Obama's friends at Acorn, the notoriously fraudulent group that he apparently is deputizing to help with the census, which is being run now by Rahm Emanuel, his chief of staff out of the White House, rather than the functionaries in the Census Bureau who normally are responsible for this very important, very politically significant undertaking. By the time Acorn is finished, there may well be, considerably more than 7 million Muslims because of their track record of cooking the books. He also, Mr. Obama, also committed to ensuring that women could cover themselves in the United States. Well, this is not generally a problem. I think the only place where it really has manifested itself is in any way as a difficulty is when women have tried to obscure their hair or their faces when photographs are being taken of them for identity purposes, driver's licenses, passports, and the like. And that's obviously kind of a problem if that kind of obscuration is permitted. Of course, the President announced that he was determined to ensure that Muslims could exercise their practice of zakat, the tithing that their faith requires of them. Then he noted that there were impediments to that practice in the United States today. Well, as Andy McCarthy points out in a brilliant piece in National Review Online, the truth of the matter is that the only reason there are any impediments to the exercise of zakat, which, by the way, 4 of the permitted grounds for such charity, according to Sharia, have at least the possibility, if not the direct linkage, to jihadist activity and support, in other words, for terror. But the President is suggesting that despite the fact that a number of past exercises of zakat in the form of the Holy Land Foundation and other Muslim charities have resulted in material support for terror. And therefore, there are indeed certain impediments to zakat in the United States. Well, what is he proposing to do about that? To clear the way for new infusions of money from American Muslims into so-called charities that are supporting Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood's other operations and perhaps even Al-Qaeda? I hope not. But that does seem to be the president's agenda today. Finally, and particularly worrying, is President Obama's very public reorientation of American policy towards the Middle East and specifically towards Israel. Although he says that there's an unbreakable bond between our two countries, he's signaling, not only by exaggerating the number of Muslims in America so that there are roughly a million more of them than there are Jews, which I believe may have something to do with his calculations as to how he wants to position himself vis-a-vis Israel. But he also is making perfectly clear that he will use all of the instruments at his disposal, and they're considerable, as President of the United States, to compel Israel to make territorial and other strategic concessions to its enemies. And we should be under no doubt. Whether it's Hamas, which has made no bones about its rejection of Israel's right to exist and its determination to drive the Jews into the sea, or whether it's Fatah, Mahmoud Abbas, this man who was recently feted in the Obama White House, which has not altered the Palestinian Charter, which has not changed the symbol of its organization, which has a map of Palestine, as they call it, in which Israel should appear but doesn't, because in fact their purpose, every bit as much as Hamas's, is a one-state solution. Whether Mr. Obama actually is a Muslim or simply plays one in his presidency may in the end be irrelevant. What is alarming is that in his actions and in the policies that he is embracing, he is seemingly adopting the program of the Muslim Brotherhood in ways that will only intensify the pressure on peaceful, tolerant, law-abiding Muslims in this country to submit to that oppressive program. And I'm afraid he's also increasing the expectation, both here and abroad, that the rest of us will do so as well.